So I did something that I've been super afraid to do for a long time, but given certain inspiration from certain creators and just visual inspirations from my love of cinema for a long time, I finally worked up the courage to do it. And I'm gonna be honest, in my 10 years of filmmaking, you never could have told me that I would have gotten to this point in my career. But I've actually wrote my first movie. Not even a skit, no exaggeration, full feature-length film. And I'm super excited to even be trying to film this year. I don't know how anybody else feels about this, but I've always felt like as filmmakers, you know, regardless of what niche that we're in, we always have that dream or that aspiration to have our name on the top of a theater and our movie playing in that theater. And I've always looked at that moment as kind of like a Super Bowl for filmmakers when they can actually see their work displayed in big lights and having people come out to see it. So this is something I'm really excited for. I can't wait to start casting. I can't wait to start scouting locations, getting everything together. I've already got the camera that I'm going to use for the movie and the lenses that I'm going to use for the movie. So now it's just about finding the talent and putting everything together. Today's video, I'm going to talk about what inspired me to write this movie. I'll give you guys some tips as far as what I've learned along the way to kind of write this movie and make it come together and come to life. Okay, so this script does have a little bit of an origin story to it. So anybody who follows my channel closely knows that I've been in the music video space for the better part of 10 years. By the way, if you're new to this channel and want to see more, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It helps me put out more videos like this. But the concept of the movie came from a particular video that I had shot for a friend of mine named Jay Luke. And he had a song with my friend James Nuts called Live Forever. And so when he called me to shoot the video, we didn't necessarily have a concept or anything like that. So me just trying to be a guerrilla director on the fly, I kind of came up with a quick treatment. And so basically some guys are playing cards and one of the guys gets a phone call to go meet up for a deal. One of the other guys gets suspicious of the phone call, just basically saying that they aren't supposed to go there yet or it was supposed to be another time. And then the third guy, who kind of really just doesn't care about anything, just says, hey, let's go anyway. So basically I explained the concept to the guys and let them know where the story needed to go, and then I just let them improv it from there. Once we got that scene, we shot out to another scene where the guys were supposed to do a meetup, and then there was supposed to be an ambush at the end of the video. Now, at the time of shooting that video, I had really no intentions of making that into any sort of story or anything like that. But there were two pretty key inspirations that kind of drove me to really want to write this film. So one of the inspirations that really planted the seed for this movie, I was on Tubi looking at films, which is sort of like a knockoff Netflix, and came across this series on Tubi called McGraw Ave. So McGraw Ave is a crime drama series on Tubi that was shot by an independent filmmaker by the name of Derek Scott, with the main character of the film being a gentleman by the name of Murder Payne. Seeing this series and seeing sort of the way that they shot it, because the thing about it is I have a bad habit when I'm looking at work to sort of look at it from a filmmaker's lens, and I'll get lost in how they did the camera movement, how the transition was, wondering what lens they shot with, and it sort of takes away from my viewing experience, but it also helps me learn at the same time too, so that's the good and bad with that. But seeing that movie sort of planted the seed in my head to say, hey, you know what, I could possibly do this too. But I'm gonna have to say the biggest spark of inspiration came from a YouTuber and cinematographer by the name of Danny Gewurz. So I'd actually stumbled onto his channel when I was doing research on the C200 as possibly a camera I would upgrade to in 2024.
What?
Super glad I didn't do that, but that's a topic for another video. And as I was looking at his stuff, I came across the video where he was talking about how he wrote his first script as well. And honestly, one of the things that made me gravitate towards what he had to say was his openness about what he goes through in the space as far as filmmaking when it comes to anxiety, imposter syndrome, and just being a normal filmmaker like us that goes through the everyday worries of, is my stuff good? Are people gonna like it? Things of that nature.
Like that nigga, I like him. That nigga, look,
And it was that video that kind of lit the spark and said, you know what, I'm gonna write this film. However, little did I know that this was gonna turn into a very, very long process, which probably necessarily wouldn't even have turned out like that if it wasn't for how my stupid ass brain works.
Eddie, I can't deal with this guy. He's an idiot.
So this is my process, as well as some tips that you can take away from it in case you're ever interested in kind of writing your first film too. So the first tip that I would give you, which is probably the most important, as well as the one that you'll probably hear the most throughout your filmmaking journey, is to write what you know and what you can film. For example, if you've never filmed a movie before and this is your first script and you've never been on an actual movie film set, then the first script you're going to write probably shouldn't be anything like a Western or sci-fi or anything that requires a lot of expensive set design. which is why I chose the genre of a crime drama. And the reason why I chose that was because it was easy for me to take the concept from the video that I had shot with Jay Luke and James Nuts and really convert that into an actual full-length story that could make people kind of sit down and watch for 90 minutes. So once I figured out what my story was going to be about and the concept, like what genre I wanted to film, I got me a notebook, just a composition notebook, and one of the first pages I just put a thought board out. So that thought board was basically just like a collage of my open thoughts on where I wanted the movie to go, you know, character names, what were the things about those characters, what made them tick, things of that nature. So this is what my open thought board looks like. You can see I wrote it all in pencil, erased a bunch of stuff, went back in. Now the next thing I did, once I had a concept of what characters were, things of that nature, what way the story would progress, I started outlining the story from start to finish. Not necessarily writing a script or dialogue, but just outlining key points in the film to know where the story needed to progress. And I would go back and forth and reference that as I wrote my dialogue. So here's what my outline looks like. As you can see, so much stuff on here. My brain was just clicking for a long time when it came to this stuff. So once I had an outline of events from beginning, middle, and end, at that point, it was time for me to get on the computer and start writing. And see, here's where things got a little dicey for me. See, when you're initially excited about something, your creative juices are just flowing nonstop, right? So the second I got on the computer and started typing, like the first 10 to 15 pages just sort of jumped out of me immediately, right? Then once I started getting to about page 20, 21, 22, that's when that writer's block sort of started to come in. And that's where my next tip comes in, is to understand that writer's block is going to happen. Don't let it deflate you to where you just back away from the story and never come back to it. If you're writing and you get to a place where you can't think or figure out where you want the story to go, take a step away from it. Watch some more movies. Go out and experience some things and let the world be your inspiration, and then come back to that script with a fresh mind, open thoughts, and then you can just keep pushing it forward. I think the next tip that I can give you that'll really help you from being unstuck in your story, or at least helping you get a concept down of where you want your story to go, is understanding the philosophy of the hero's journey.
I'm no hero. Never was. Never will be.
So the hero's journey is basically a concept of storytelling that if you've been in the realm of filmmaking for a while now, you'll probably understand that this concept and process of storytelling is pretty much done in any kind of story you've ever read, any movie you've ever watched, or anything of that nature. Now, I won't get too deep into it here, but basically it's the concept where your protagonist is in an ordinary world the way they see it. There's an event that disrupts their routine, like a call to adventure. The main character usually goes through some sort of denial or refusing the call to action. At that point, there's typically a mentor or someone they hold close to them they meet up with. The next point, there's typically a threshold that the character crosses. There's a set of events and an ordeal that tests the enemies, that tests the character, things of that nature. Typically, the character has a road back to redemption, and there's typically a reward at the end of that redemption. Now, that's a paraphrased version of how that philosophy goes. There's way more videos on YouTube that can kind of break that down to you fully, but that's just something I wanted to put into your head to kind of get started. So write that down, the hero's journey, go look that up, and then make sure as you're writing your script that your story follows that hero's journey process. And if at any point you feel like your story veers away from that process, you know you need to take a step away, rethink some things, and then step back into it. Another thing that I did that helped me a lot, which is a tip that I'll give you guys, is to use reference boards. And you can do this with a lot of things. You can do this with Milanote. You can use your notepad on your iPhone if you've got one, or you could even make a separate gallery in your photos. But basically you want a reference board which is full of screen grabs from some of the movies that draw some of your inspiration. And make sure you have a mixture of shots. Make sure you have things like close-ups, wide angles, over the shoulders. Get screen grabs of different concepts of lighting. And you want these images to be screen grabs of shots with the look of what you're trying to go for, or something that you're going to mimic going forward. I guess sort of the last tip that I could give you guys is just to take this process and just have fun with it. I was listening to a guy the other day named Rollo Tomasi. He wrote a book called The Rational Male. And one of the things that he said that really stuck out to me was that people spend too much time trying to find happiness in the destination. And something he delineated was that happiness isn't necessarily a destination. Happiness comes in the journey that you take towards reaching that destination. And like Damon Dash said, once you have a dream and you've worked towards that dream is dead, and now it's time to work on the next one. So take this process, make it fun, get some inspiration from other movies, use your reference board, learn the hero's journey, and above all else, make your film, because at the end of the day, the only reason that piece of art that you want isn't out is because you haven't pressed record. It's been another one from your boy DaVinci HD. If you like this video, hit the like button and the subscribe button. It really helps me put out more content for you guys like this, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace out.